Kate Miller stood in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime, watching as alien delegates dismissed her once again. The tall blue Zephyrian Chancellor waved his hand like she was an annoying child trying to speak during adult conversation. Kate had been Earth's ambassador for 8 years, and this scene played out the same way every single time. The chamber stretched up into darkness above, filled with floating platforms where different alien species sat in their designated areas. Humans got the smallest platform, tucked away in a corner where most delegates could barely see them. Kate often wondered why they even bothered giving Earth a seat at all. Today's session was supposed to discuss trade agreements, but it had quickly turned into another lecture about how humans needed to learn their place in galactic society. The Altarian Trade Consortium representative, a slug-like creature named Vexmorph, was explaining why Earth should give up mining rights to their own asteroid belt. Humans are clearly not capable of proper resource management, Vexmorph declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. The asteroid belt contains materials vital to galactic commerce and cannot be wasted on primitive extraction methods. Kate tried to stand and speak, but the Chancellor's voice boomed over hers. Ambassador Miller, please allow the experienced delegates to handle this discussion. Perhaps you could observe and learn something useful. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The same condescending alien laughter that Kate had heard for years. It didn't matter that human scientists had solved 3 major galactic diseases. It didn't matter that human engineers had improved faster-than-light travel efficiency by 40%. It didn't matter that human peacekeepers had stopped 2 wars in the Outer Rim territories. To these aliens, humans would always be the new species that stumbled into space just 50 years ago, back on Earth. Captain Ryan Brooks watched the council session through his command screen aboard the Orbital Defense Station. His jaw muscles worked as he saw Kate being treated like a servant. Ryan commanded the human defense fleet, which mostly consisted of retrofitted exploration ships and a few purpose-built destroyers. The aliens let humans patrol the dangerous border regions where pirates operated, but never allowed them into the core systems where real decisions got made. Ryan's communication officer looked up from her station. Sir, we're getting reports from the mining colonies. Altarian inspectors are already on site demanding access to our extraction facilities. They're moving fast, Ryan muttered. He opened a secure channel to Earth. Get me President Hayes immediately. In the White House Situation Room, President Lisa Hayes sat with her cabinet watching the same feeds from Nexus Prime. Secretary of Defense Joe Martinez paced behind her chair while Chief Science Advisor Dr. Amy Turner took notes on a tablet. The room was quiet except for the sound of alien voices dismissing human concerns. Madam President, Dr. Turner said quietly, if they take the asteroid belt, we lose access to rare Earth elements that power our entire technology base. We'll be completely dependent on galactic suppliers. Which is exactly what they want, Martinez added. Keep us dependent, keep us weak, keep us grateful for whatever scraps they throw our way. President Hayes watched as Kate Miller tried once more to address the council, only to be cut off by more alien laughter. She had been in politics for 20 years and understood power dynamics better than most. This wasn't negotiation or diplomacy. This was humiliation designed to keep humans in their place, back on Nexus Prime. The Altarian representative was now proposing what he called a civilization maturity tax, a tribute system that would require Earth to pay a percentage of their gross planetary product to the Galactic Council for the privilege of membership. The tax would supposedly fund educational programs to help humanity develop proper galactic citizenship. Kate felt something cold settle in her stomach. They weren't just taking Earth's resources anymore. They were demanding payment for the right to be treated as second-class citizens in their own galaxy. She thought about the human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems, all working hard to build something better than what they had left behind on Earth. She thought about the soldiers who died protecting alien trade routes while being told they weren't good enough to defend the core worlds. She thought about the scientists who shared their discoveries freely while being excluded from advanced research projects. The vote was called. 47 alien species voted in favor of the civilization maturity tax. 0 voted against. Kate Miller wasn't even allowed to cast Earth's vote because humans were considered too immature to understand the complexities of galactic finance. The chamber erupted in satisfied alien chatter as delegates began discussing implementation details. Kate stood slowly from her chair, feeling the weight of humanity's dignity settling on her shoulders. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The United Earth government formally rejects this proposal and all future council authority over human affairs. Consider this our resignation from your little club. The chamber fell silent. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever voluntarily left the council. Kate Miller had just done something unprecedented, and every alien in the chamber knew it. She gathered her things, walked to the transport pad, and left Nexus Prime forever, carrying with her the end of humanity's participation in galactic civilization. President Lisa Hayes stood before the cameras in the Oval Office, knowing that her next words would change human history forever. Behind her, the flag of Earth hung alongside the flags of every human colony in space. She had spent 3 sleepless days preparing for this moment after Kate Miller's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council. My fellow humans, both on Earth and across the stars, she began, her voice steady and clear. Today marks the beginning of humanity's true independence. We are withdrawing completely from all galactic institutions, treaties, and agreements. We choose to walk our own path among the stars. The reaction across Earth was immediate. In New York, people gathered in Times Square to watch the broadcast on giant screens. In Beijing, government officials held emergency meetings. In Lagos, students cheered in the streets. But the real work was just beginning. Dr. Amy Turner sat in her laboratory at the Pentagon, surrounded by quantum computers and classified research files. She had been waiting for this day longer than anyone knew. For years, she had been secretly developing technologies that went far beyond anything the galactic community possessed. Now she could finally put her plans into action. Begin Protocol 7, she told her team of 12 scientists. Remove all human contributions from the galactic database. Every algorithm, every medical procedure, every engineering solution we've shared over the past 37 years gets deleted right now. Her fingers flew across holographic displays as she personally removed the faster-than-light communication protocols that humanity had developed. These protocols allowed instant communication across galactic distances and formed the backbone of interstellar civilization. Without them, the galaxy would return to communication delays measured in years instead of seconds. Trade. Representative Carlos Smith worked from his office in Geneva, systematically canceling every commercial agreement between Earth and alien civilizations. His team of lawyers and economists had prepared for this moment by studying every contract, every trade deal, and every resource agreement. They found legal ways to exit everything within 48 hours. The Centauri grain exports are terminated, his assistant reported. The vegan technology sharing agreement is void. The Altarian mining consortium contracts are canceled under the emergency sovereignty clause. Carlos smiled grimly as he signed digital documents that would strand alien trade networks. Humanity had become the reliable partner that everyone depended on but no one respected. Now they would learn what happened when that reliability disappeared. On the mining colony of Kepler 442b, colony administrator Beth Collins watched alien overseers panic as human workers began packing their equipment. The automated mining systems that humans had installed were being dismantled piece by piece. These systems had increased production by 300% over traditional galactic methods. You cannot do this, the Altarian site supervisor protested. The Galactic Trade Commission will not allow it. Beth looked at the slug-like alien with calm satisfaction. The Galactic Trade Commission has no authority over human personnel or human-designed equipment. We're going home. The mining facility ground to a halt within hours. Alien workers tried to operate the advanced extraction machines but succeeded only in damaging them. Raw material output dropped to levels not seen in decades as the true extent of human contribution became clear. Admiral Ryan Brooks coordinated the largest military withdrawal in galactic history from his flagship orbiting Earth. Human peacekeeping forces were returning from 17 different star systems where they had been maintaining order in dangerous frontier regions. The aliens had been happy to let humans handle the dirty work of keeping pirates and raiders in check. "Admiral, we're receiving urgent communications from the Tau Ceti Defense Force," his communications officer reported. "They're begging us to reconsider the withdrawal. They say pirate activity has already tripled since our ships left the system." "Log the message," Brooks replied. "Send a polite response declining their request." The galactic response came within days. Zephyrian Chancellor Vexka issued a public statement calling humanity's withdrawal a tantrum by an immature species, and predicted humans would come crawling back within a solar cycle. The Altarian Trade Consortium was even more dismissive, announcing they would simply take what they wanted from human space, but Dr. Amy Turner and her team had prepared for this reaction. Deep in classified research facilities on Earth and Mars, human scientists activated technologies that had been kept secret for over a decade. They had learned from watching galactic politics that showing all your capabilities was a mistake. Now it was time for the first demonstration, colony shields activated simultaneously across dozens of human star systems. These weren't the primitive, defensive barriers that galactic civilizations used. These shields operated on principles that alien science couldn't even detect, much less understand. They created impenetrable barriers that no known weapon could breach. On Alpha Centauri Prime, Colonial Governor Don Cooper watched alien patrol ships try to approach his planet only to bounce harmlessly off the invisible barrier surrounding the entire system. The aliens fired their weapons and launched missiles, all of which simply disappeared into the shield matrix without causing any damage. "Sir," his defense coordinator reported, "the Altarian fleet commander is demanding we lower our defenses and submit to Galactic Council authority." "Tell him to file a complaint with customer service," Cooper replied with a grin. Similar scenes played out across human space. Alien fleets found themselves locked out of systems they had considered under their control. Human colonies that had seemed defenseless suddenly became untouchable fortresses. The technology gap that aliens had assumed favored them was revealed to be an illusion. Back on Earth, President Hayes received reports from every human colony and outpost. The withdrawal was proceeding exactly as planned. Humanity had spent decades being underestimated while secretly preparing for this exact scenario. They had learned everything they could from galactic civilization and then improved upon it. The final piece fell into place when Kate Miller arrived back on Earth after her journey from Nexus Prime. She walked into the White House carrying data, chips filled with classified galactic military codes and strategic intelligence that she had been quietly collecting for years. "Madam President," she said with a tired smile, "humanity is officially free." Admiral Vexthul of the Combined Galactic Fleet stood on the bridge of his massive dreadnought, watching as the largest military armada in 3 centuries assembled around him. Ships from 12 different species formed battle formations that stretched across space for millions of kilometers. The fleet included over 2,000 vessels ranging from nimble fighters to planet-killing battleships. 6 months had passed since the humans had walked away from galactic civilization, and the initial dismissive attitude had transformed into cold anger. Trade routes were collapsing, mining operations were failing, and communication networks were breaking down. The Galactic Council had finally admitted what everyone already knew: they needed to force humanity back into line. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "all fleet elements are in position. We outnumber the human defensive forces 50 to 1. Intelligence suggests they have perhaps 40 operational warships compared to our 2,000. Vexthul nodded with satisfaction. The humans had been clever with their shield technology, but shields meant nothing when you could simply destroy the generators from orbit. Once the human colony surrendered, the galaxy could return to normal operations with humans properly. Subdued. At the edge of the Sol system, Fleet Admiral Ryan Brooks watched the approaching armada through his command screens aboard the Earth defense ship Liberty. His fleet consisted of 37 vessels that looked primitive compared to the sleek alien warships bearing down on them. But appearances could be deceiving. "Admiral," Commander Jake Morrison called from the tactical station, "enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 14 minutes. They're demanding our immediate surrender and the restoration of all galactic treaties." Brooks studied the massive alien formation with calm interest. The aliens were using traditional battle tactics, overwhelming firepower concentrated in a single massive assault. It was exactly what Dr. Amy Turner's team had predicted they would do. "Send a reply," Brooks ordered. "Tell them they have 5 minutes to turn around and leave human space. After that, we will demonstrate why humanity chose to leave their little club." The alien fleet's response was predictable. Energy weapons blazed across space as the Galactic Armada opened fire at maximum range. Missiles and plasma bolts filled the darkness between the fleets like a deadly light show. The concentrated firepower was enough to shatter planets, but the human ships didn't even try to dodge. Instead, they simply vanished. The alien weapons passed through empty space. Where human vessels had been just moments before, Admiral Vexthul stared at his tactical displays in confusion as every human ship disappeared from his sensors simultaneously. "Where did they go?" he demanded. "Find them immediately." His science officer worked frantically at his station. "Sir, they're not cloaked. They're not on any sensor frequency we can detect. It's like they simply stopped existing." The answer came 30 seconds later when the human fleet reappeared directly inside the alien formation. The Liberty materialized. Less than a kilometer from Vexthul's flagship, close enough that he could see the human ship's hull through his bridge viewports. What happened next redefined galactic warfare forever. The human ships opened fire with weapons that ignored every known law of physics. Their energy beams passed through alien shields like they weren't there, striking hull metal directly. But instead of causing explosions, the beams simply shut. Down every system they touched, Admiral Brooks watched his tactical display as enemy ships went dark one by one. The alien vessels weren't being destroyed, they were being systematically disabled. Life support remained functional, but weapons, engines, and shields simply stopped working when touched by human weapon beams. "Sir," Commander Morrison reported. With barely contained amazement, "the enemy flagship is completely dead in space. All weapon systems offline, engines offline, but crew life signs remain stable." "Good," Brooks replied. "Send boarding teams to secure their command staff. I want to have a conversation with Admiral Vexthul about the proper way to enter human space." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. 2,000 alien warships were left drifting helplessly while not a single human vessel had taken any damage. The technological gap wasn't just wide, it was a canyon that alien science couldn't even begin to cross on Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council watched battle feeds in stunned silence. Chancellor Vexkra's confident expression slowly melted into something approaching terror as he realized the implications of what he was seeing. The humans hadn't just been participating in galactic civilization, they had been studying it, learning its weaknesses and preparing countermeasures. "How is this possible?" the Altarian representative whispered. Their technology level was assessed as barely adequate for space travel. Dr. Zethmore, the Council's chief science advisor, stared at the tactical recordings with growing horror. They must have been developing these capabilities in secret for decades. The dimensional displacement technology alone represents a breakthrough that our best scientists said was impossible. The full scope of human preparation became clear as rescue ships arrived to tow the disabled alien fleet back to their home. Systems. The humans could have easily destroyed every ship and killed millions of crew members. Instead, they had chosen to demonstrate their overwhelming superiority while preserving life. It was a message that no one in the galaxy could misunderstand. Admiral Vexthul found himself sitting in the Liberty's conference room, facing Admiral Brooks across a simple metal table. The human looked younger than expected, maybe 40 years old, with calm eyes that seemed to see everything. Behind him stood 2 human Marines in armor that incorporated technologies Vexthul couldn't identify. "Admiral," Brooks said politely, "I hope you understand that this was just a demonstration. Human defensive capabilities extend far beyond what you witnessed today. Vexthul tried to maintain his dignity despite being a prisoner on an enemy ship. The Galactic Council will not tolerate this aggression. You have attacked a lawful peacekeeping force. Brooks smiled slightly. You brought 2,000 warships to attack human colonies and you're calling us aggressive. That's interesting logic. He leaned forward. Let me explain something about human space, Admiral. We didn't ask you to leave us alone. We're telling you. Any hostile fleet that enters our territory will be disabled and sent home. Any attempt to attack human civilians will result in the complete destruction of your homeworld. The alien admiral felt ice form in his blood. The human wasn't making threats. He was stating facts with the calm certainty of someone who had the power to back up his words. Furthermore, Brooks continued, humanity is placing a permanent interdiction on this region of space. Any galactic government vessels detected within 50 light-years of human territory will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Back on Earth, President Hayes received Admiral Brooks' after-action report with grim satisfaction. The demonstration had been even more successful than hoped. Not only had they disabled the entire galactic fleet without casualties, but they had also revealed the true extent of human technological advancement. The message to the galaxy was now crystal clear. Humanity would not be bullied, conquered, or coerced into returning to a system that had never respected them. They had the power to destroy galactic civilization if they chose to do so, but they preferred to simply walk away and build something better. The galactic economy began falling apart 3 weeks after the failed military intervention against humanity. Trade networks that had operated smoothly for centuries suddenly ground to a halt as alien civilizations discovered just how much they had depended on human expertise without ever realizing it. On the manufacturing world of Proxima Industrial, plant manager Keth Volume stared at his production reports with growing panic. The massive factories that produced Starship components were operating at 30% efficiency, and the numbers kept getting worse each day. Quality control systems were failing, shipping schedules had collapsed, and defect rates were climbing to levels not seen in decades. The problem had started when human engineers stopped responding to consultation requests. For the past 15 years, Keth Volume had relied on a team of human specialists led by an engineer named Steve Parker to optimize his production lines. The humans had quietly revolutionized manufacturing processes across the galaxy, but their improvements required constant fine-tuning and adjustment. Sir, his assistant reported nervously, the fusion coil assembly line has shut down again. The quality control algorithms are rejecting 90% of units, but we can't figure out what's wrong with the specifications. Keth Volume tried contacting the human engineering firm that had designed the quality control systems, only to receive an automated message stating that Earth-based companies no longer provided consulting services to galactic entities. The message was polite but final. Similar scenes were playing out across thousands of worlds as alien civilizations discovered that their most advanced systems had been designed or improved by humans. The efficient algorithms that managed interstellar shipping routes, the medical protocols that had revolutionized alien healthcare, the energy distribution systems that powered entire planets, all of it had human fingerprints. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's former chief economic advisor to the Galactic Trade Commission, sat in her office in Geneva reviewing reports from across the galaxy. She had spent 5 years quietly implementing efficiency improvements that had increased galactic trade volume by 40%. Now that she had withdrawn all her algorithms and recommendations, the old inefficiencies were returning with a vengeance. The vegan trade routes are experiencing 70% delays, her assistant reported. The Altarian Shipping Consortium is reporting massive cargo losses due to routing failures. The entire Outer Rim supply chain has basically collapsed. Elena nodded with satisfaction. She had always known that her work was keeping galactic commerce functioning, but the aliens had treated her contributions as minor clerical assistance. Now they were learning the difference between human innovation and alien tradition. The medical crisis hit even harder than the economic disruption. Across the galaxy, alien hospitals found themselves unable to treat diseases that had been easily curable just months before. Dr. Steve Parker and his team of human medical researchers had developed revolutionary treatments for 17 different alien conditions, sharing their discoveries freely through galactic health networks on the medical station orbiting Arcturus. Chief Medical Officer Velnoth watched his staff struggle with an outbreak of Zephyrian nerve decay, a condition that had been virtually eliminated 3 years ago. The human-developed treatment protocols required precise timing and specific drug combinations that alien doctors had never fully understood. "We're losing patients that we could have saved easily last month," Velnoth reported to his supervisors. "The humans didn't just give us treatment procedures. They gave us the underlying scientific understanding that made those treatments work. Without that knowledge, we're just following recipes we don't comprehend." The situation was similar across every medical field where humans had contributed. Genetic therapy programs failed because alien scientists couldn't replicate the human insights that made them effective. Surgical procedures that had seemed routine suddenly became impossibly complex. Without human-trained specialists available for consultation, on the research station orbiting Vega 3, lead scientist Zeltov made a discovery that chilled him to his core. His team had been working on 17 major research projects, all of which had shown promising results over the past few years. Now, reviewing the project files with fresh eyes, he realized that every single breakthrough had been built on theoretical frameworks developed by human scientists. The climate restoration project for Kepler 438b is based entirely on atmospheric models created by Dr. Amy Turner. His research assistant reported, "The genetic disease therapy program uses human-developed gene editing techniques. Even our sustainable energy research relies on human quantum field theories." Zeltov felt sick as he realized the implications. His civilization had been taking credit for scientific advances that were actually human innovations. Worse, they had been so focused on maintaining their sense of superiority that they had never bothered to truly understand the science they were using. The Altarian Trade Consortium faced the worst collapse of all. CAO Mao Vec watched his civilization's stock portfolios crash as investors finally understood the true extent of their reliance on human innovation. The mining operations that formed the backbone of Altarian wealth had been revolutionized by human engineers who had increased extraction efficiency by 300% while reducing environmental damage. "Sir, our mining output is down to 20% of previous levels," his operations director reported. "The automated systems are failing faster than we can repair them. Our human contractors designed everything to work together as an integrated system, but we never learned how the individual components functioned." Mao Vec tried to hire independent contractors to replace the human expertise, but discovered that most other species had been just as dependent on human innovation. The few alien engineers who had worked closely with humans were overwhelmed with requests for help and charging prices that made their services economically impossible. The Zephyrian Empire, which had led the charge for human subjugation, found their entire technological infrastructure beginning to crumble. Communication networks experienced increasing delays and failures. Power distribution systems operated at reduced efficiency. Even their vaunted military found that their newest weapon systems required human-developed targeting algorithms to function properly. Chancellor Vexka received daily reports of system failures and economic disruption across Zephyrian space. His advisors had initially dismissed these problems as temporary adjustments, but the situation was clearly getting worse instead of better. "Your Excellency," his economic minister reported grimly, "our gross planetary product has declined by 30% in the past month. Industrial output is falling, trade revenues are collapsing, and our military effectiveness has been severely compromised." The irony was not lost on human observers watching the galactic economy unravel. Dr. Amy Turner reviewed intelligence reports from her laboratory on Earth, noting how quickly alien civilizations were discovering their dependence on human expertise. "They spent decades treating us like primitive children," she told President Hayes during their weekly briefing. Now, they're learning that their advanced civilization was actually built on human foundations that they never bothered to understand. The collapse accelerated as alien civilizations tried to solve their problems by reverting to pre-human technologies and methods. But 37 years of human-improved systems had made the old ways obsolete. Entire industries had been restructured around human innovations, and going backward proved impossible without accepting massive reductions in efficiency and capability. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity hadn't been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the foundation that kept everything else functioning. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from galactic civilization, and the panic was now complete. The Galactic Council faced the worst crisis in its 10,000-year history as member species realized that their advanced society had been held together by the innovations of the species they had dismissed as primitive. General Patricia Walsh sat in her office at the newly established Department of Interspecies Affairs in Washington, reviewing the latest batch of communication attempts from alien governments. Her desk was covered with data tablets containing thousands of messages that had arrived in the past week alone. The tone of these messages had changed dramatically over the past 24 months. The early messages had been demanding, ordering humanity to return to their proper place in galactic society. Then came threatening messages promising military action and economic sanctions. Those had been followed by increasingly desperate offers of better trade terms and minor concessions. Now the messages were pure pleading, offering everything from tribute payments to military alliances in exchange for even limited human cooperation. General, her aide reported, we received another 47 official communications yesterday. The Centauri Republic is offering to make Earth a protected world with full voting rights in their regional council. The Vegan Collective is promising exclusive access to their rare mineral deposits. The Tau Ceti Alliance wants to surrender their entire merchant fleet in exchange for human logistical support. Patricia filed the messages under her standard classification system, which now consisted of only one category, irrelevant. She had more important work to focus on, specifically the remarkable transformation happening within human space. The Zephyrian Empire was falling apart from the inside as their client species finally realized that Zephyrian technological superiority had been largely based on appropriated human innovations. Chancellor Vexka's government had fallen 6 months ago in a coup led by moderates who believed reconciliation with humanity was their only hope for survival. The new Zephyrian leadership, headed by Prime Minister Kovrol, had been sending increasingly desperate messages to Earth. Their latest proposal offered to dissolve the Zephyrian Empire entirely and submit all former Zephyrian worlds to human administration in exchange for restoration of critical systems. They're offering us an entire stellar empire, Patricia told President Hayes during their morning briefing. 43 star systems containing 62 habitable worlds, all in exchange for fixing their power grid and communication networks. President Hayes shook her head in amazement. 2 years ago, they wanted to impose a maturity tax on us because we weren't civilized enough to manage our own affairs. Meanwhile, the transformation within human space had been nothing short of miraculous. Free from the constraints of galactic treaties that had limited human expansion and technological development, humanity had entered a golden age that surpassed even their most optimistic projections. Chief Technology Officer Dan Cooper stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching construction robots assemble humanity's first dimensional gateway. The massive ring-shaped structure would allow instantaneous travel between star systems, making the old faster-than-light engines look like steam locomotives. Sir, his project coordinator reported, the gateway will be operational within 6 months. Once we complete the network, travel time between any 2 human colonies will be measured in minutes instead of days. The technological leaps were happening across every field of human endeavor. Medical researchers had conquered aging, allowing humans to live for centuries while maintaining perfect health. Agricultural scientists had developed crops that could grow in virtually any environment, eliminating food scarcity forever. Energy Specialists had created fusion reactors so efficient that power had become essentially free, but perhaps most remarkably, human space was experiencing a refugee crisis in reverse. Alien civilians from across the galaxy were fleeing toward human territory, hoping for the stability and prosperity that seemed to follow humanity wherever they went. Colonial Director Sarah Williams managed the immigration processing center on New Olympus, humanity's newest and most prosperous colony world. Her facility processed refugees from 37 different alien species, all seeking asylum from the collapsing galactic economy. We have Altarian engineers who want to work in our mining operations, she reported to Colonial Command. Zephyrian doctors who want to study our medical techniques. Even vegan artists who say human space is the only place left where they can pursue their work without worrying about economic collapse. The refugees brought with them stories of complete societal breakdown across much of the galaxy. Worlds that had been prosperous and stable for centuries were now experiencing food shortages, power failures, and communication blackouts. The Galactic Council had become a toothless organization that controlled barely 20% of its former territory. Intelligence reports suggested that several major galactic powers were considering dissolving entirely and petitioning for membership in whatever organization humanity might be willing to create. The irony was not lost on human leadership. The species that had been denied equal treatment now found themselves being begged to provide leadership. Admiral Ryan Brooks commanded the most powerful military force in known galactic history, but he had achieved that position through attraction rather than conquest. Species after species had approached humanity requesting protection from pirates, raiders, and the general chaos that had engulfed the galaxy. The human fleet now included vessels from 8 different alien civilizations whose governments had voluntarily placed their forces under human command. Admiral, his intelligence chief reported, the former Galactic Council Defense Force has been reduced to fewer than 200 operational ships. 3 more species withdrew their vessels this week to join our coalition. Brooks reviewed the strategic situation with satisfaction. Humanity controlled secure space lanes covering 30% of the galaxy, maintained peaceful relations with another 40%, and was actively engaged in humanitarian missions throughout the remaining disputed territories. They had achieved galactic dominance not through force but through competence and trustworthiness. The old Galactic Council still existed in name, but it had become a pathetic shadow of its former self. Recent intelligence reports suggested that the remaining member species were considering a formal dissolution of the Council and a joint petition to join whatever replacement organization humanity might establish. Dr. Amy Turner received these reports from her advanced research facility on Mars, where her teams were working on projects that would have been considered impossible just 5 years earlier. They were developing technologies to terraform dead worlds in months instead of centuries, create stable wormhole networks for instant galactic communication, and even manipulate time itself on a localized scale. The beautiful thing about all of this, she told her research staff during their weekly meeting, is that we're finally free to pursue real innovation instead of trying to fit our ideas into the limitations of galactic bureaucracy. President Hayes addressed the growing crisis from the White House, but her words were directed at humanity rather than the pleading alien governments. Her message was simple. Humanity would help those who asked respectfully and treated humans as equals, but they would never again accept second-class status in someone else's system. Children growing up in human space learned about the old days, when their parents had begged for acceptance from aliens who saw them as inferior. These new generations, raised in a galaxy where humans were recognized as natural leaders and innovators, could barely comprehend how their elders had tolerated such treatment. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the difference between age and wisdom, between tradition and innovation, between ruling through fear and leading through respect. Humanity had not sought to conquer the galaxy. They had simply chosen to build something better than what came before. 5 years had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy had been completely transformed. Earth now stood at the center of a new interstellar community called the Terran Alliance, built on principles of voluntary association, mutual respect, and genuine partnership rather than domination and exploitation. Ambassador Kate Miller, who had delivered humanity's resignation from the old council, now served as the first Director General of the Terran Alliance. She stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall of Luna Station, addressing representatives from 43 different species who had chosen to abandon the failing remnants of galactic civilization and join humanity's growing coalition. The alliance included not just the desperate refugees who had fled collapsing worlds, but also proud and ancient civilizations who recognized that humanity offered something genuinely better than what had come before. The Andromedan Collective had been one of the first major powers to formally withdraw from the Galactic Council and petition for alliance membership. Their representatives now sat alongside former enemies, all united by shared principles rather than shared species. The Terran Alliance represents a new vision for interstellar civilization, Kate announced to the assembled delegates. We judge species by their contributions rather than their age or military power. We share innovation freely among partners rather than hoarding it for advantage. We protect smaller civilizations rather than exploiting them. The contrast with the old system was stark and deliberate, where the Galactic Council had maintained rigid hierarchies based on species age and military strength. The Terran Alliance operated on democratic principles with equal representation, where the Council had restricted technology sharing to maintain power balances. The Alliance encouraged open scientific cooperation. Where the Council had used smaller species as expendable resources, the Alliance provided protection and development assistance. President Hayes, now serving her third term, watched the Alliance assembly from her office on Earth via quantum communication link. The woman who had authorized humanity's withdrawal was now overseeing the construction of something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly cooperative interstellar civilization that worked for the benefit of all members rather than just the powerful few. The success of the Alliance was visible everywhere. Member worlds experienced unprecedented prosperity as human innovations spread freely throughout Alliance space. Disease had been virtually eliminated through shared medical knowledge. Hunger was extinct thanks to advanced agricultural techniques. Energy poverty was a thing of the past as fusion technology became universally available. Dr. Amy Turner's research teams had achieved breakthroughs that seemed like magic to most species. They could terraform dead worlds in a matter of months, create stable wormhole networks for instantaneous travel and communication, and even manipulate local time flow to accelerate scientific research. Most remarkably, they shared these discoveries freely with all Alliance members. The key insight, Dr. Turner explained to a gathering of alien scientists on Mars, was that innovation accelerates when knowledge is shared rather than hoarded. The old galactic system was designed to prevent any single species from advancing too quickly. We've removed those artificial limitations, and the results speak for themselves. The old Galactic Council had become irrelevant almost overnight. Reduced to fewer than 20 species controlling perhaps 15% of their former territory, they existed mainly as a cautionary reminder of how not to organize interstellar civilization. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning to dissolve entirely and submit a collective membership application to the Terran Alliance. Admiral Ryan Brooks commanded Alliance defense forces that had grown beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, not through conquest but through voluntary cooperation. Ships and personnel from dozens of species served together under human leadership, united by shared values rather than forced allegiance. The Alliance fleet protected trade routes, responded to natural disasters, and kept the peace across vast regions of space. Admiral, his chief of staff reported, we received another membership application from the Rigel Confederacy. That brings U.S. to 62 species either in the Alliance or formally applying for membership. Brooks nodded with satisfaction. The Alliance had become so attractive that species were competing to join rather than fighting to stay out. Membership brought immediate benefits, access to advanced technology, protection from pirates and raiders, participation in the galaxy's most prosperous economy, and a voice in decisions that affected their future. The transformation was most visible in the border regions that had once been dangerous frontier territories. Areas that had been plagued by piracy and warfare for centuries were now peaceful and prosperous under Alliance protection. Human peacekeeping forces worked alongside alien partners to maintain order and provide humanitarian assistance. Colonial Governor Don Cooper managed one of the Alliance's most successful integration projects on the former pirate stronghold of Tortuga Station. What had once been a haven for criminals and raiders was now a thriving commercial hub where dozens of species worked and traded together peacefully. "Sir," his security chief reported, "we had 0 violent incidents last month in commercial. Traffic is up 40% over the previous quarter. The former pirates are actually some of our most productive citizens now that they have legitimate opportunities for advancement." The success stories were repeated throughout Alliance space. Former enemies worked together on joint projects. Species that had been considered primitive by the Old Council contributed valuable innovations to Alliance research. Young civilizations received mentorship and support rather than exploitation and domination. Children growing up in Alliance space learned galactic history very differently than previous generations. They studied the Old Galactic Council as an example of how fear and prejudice could create systems that hurt everyone involved. They learned that true strength came from cooperation rather than domination, that diversity was a source of innovation rather than conflict. Kate Miller concluded her address to the Alliance Assembly with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. 5 years ago, humanity was told we were too young, too primitive, too immature to have a voice in galactic affairs. Today we stand at the center of a civilization that works for everyone because it was built on respect rather than fear. The applause that followed came from dozens of different species, using dozens of different methods of expressing approval. It was the sound of a galaxy that had finally learned to work together. Dr. Amy Turner's team achieved their greatest breakthrough on the 5th anniversary of humanity's withdrawal from the Old Council. They developed a technology that would revolutionize space travel by allowing entire star systems to be moved through dimensional space. It was an achievement that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen, but this time, instead of the technology being restricted to the species that developed it, the plans were immediately shared with all Alliance members. Within months, dozens of species were contributing improvements and refinements to the original design. The collaborative approach produced results that no single species could have achieved alone. The final irony came when the last remnants of the Old Galactic Council formally dissolved and submitted their membership application to the Terran Alliance. The species that had once dismissed humanity as too immature for galactic citizenship now sought to join the civilization that humans had built. Ambassador Kate Miller personally reviewed their application with the same care given to all potential members. The Alliance Council voted to accept them with full membership rights and responsibilities, demonstrating that the new system truly was built on forgiveness and cooperation rather than revenge and exclusion. As the galaxy settled into its new configuration, it became clear that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had not conquered the galaxy through military force or economic pressure. They had not imposed their values on unwilling subjects or created an empire built on fear. Instead, they had simply offered a better way of doing things and let others choose to join them. The Terran Alliance represented everything the Old Galactic Council had claimed to be, but never was, a true community of equals working together for mutual benefit. Humanity had walked away from a broken system and built something better in its place, creating a future where all species could thrive together among the stars.